Hey everybody, welcome back to the channel. Getting back to work on the MR2 in this video. As I mentioned in my last few videos, the month of December is pretty crazy between holidays, work, and family commitments. So going to be kind of little short projects that I'm going to be doing as time allows. So what I'm doing in this video is I have the MR2 Heaven front wheel well spoilers. They're basically a repop of an JDM part that was installed on the later Japanese MR2s for a little bit of aero and stability, I guess is what they call it, or say they do. So I picked those up from MR2 Heaven. So I'm going to walk you through what comes in the package and how to install them on the car. All right, so here is what you get. You get the two spoilers, two mounting brackets that go on the other side of the fender liner, and then 6 nuts and 6 bolts. And then, of course, the MR2 Heaven sticker. They're pretty much universal fitment. You look at them, the two are the same. Two outer holes are larger, center hole is smaller, so that seems to be the one that you would want to drill first to set the alignment of where this thing is going to sit properly. There are no instructions that come with them. You go on the site, there's no instructions, just some photos of these installed, as well as like CAD drawings and stuff like that to show you how they want them mounted to the car. So basically what you're gonna have to do is just figure out where you want it in the fender well. These go in front of the tire, up against kind of the bumper cover and the fender liner there. And then this bracket would go on the other side of the liner towards the outside of the vehicle. Fits into the fender liner, and then there's no bracket for the inner. It's just going to be the nut going through a hole and then the bolt on the other side. So what I have to do is get the car up in the air, get the front wheels pulled off, and then can start looking at how these things are going to be mounted and the best way to fit them up in place. So I'm going to go ahead and get that done, and I'll come back once it is ready. All right, up in the air and wheels off. So here is the front on the passenger side. And you can see there is kind of an indentation here, which matches up with the shape of the actual flap or spoiler. So basically, this seam area here goes to the inside of the wheel. The flat edge faces forward as far as the bottom goes. And then this notch there, whatever you want to call it, will fit in the minimal groove that's there. So that's roughly the orientation of how that's going to go in. And then the plate actually kind of matches the shape of the wheel liner, so it's going to fit, and this is going to be the two inside holes. The outermost hole, you'll just have to drill through the actual spoiler, and it'll go through the spoiler with a nut on the other side. Based on the photos I've seen, the top of this will pretty much be about halfway up the spoiler, but you're going to have to mount it in a place where you'll have enough of the actual spoiler itself to drill through and get the bolt and nut to go through, and it's not going to just tear out the side or anything like that. So keep that in mind. That's really all that there are as far as instruction or guides. So this is roughly where it's going to fit on the spoiler, and then you just have to drill your holes and go accordingly. So my plan is to kind of have it positioned where I want it, mark the center hole, because that's the one that's the smallest. The outer holes have play. So your center hole is basically going to be your pivot points. You mark that, get it where you want it, and then you can level it accordingly, drill the holes, and run the bolts through the two outer holes. So that is how this is going to go in. That's my plan of attack for doing it. Like I said, I'm going to have it roughly down halfway the spoiler, as long as I can get enough meat on the actual spoiler itself to get the bolts through and get a nut on the back side, under here. So that's pretty much how this has to go in. I guess, from underneath I'm going to have to loosen a few things up to be able to get above it and get this plate in, because I don't think I can I can't get in back there. So there's a little bit of disassembly I'll have to do underneath, and then I can start getting this thing put together. And one thing I do want to mention is these are the MR2 Heaven fender liners, the thicker upgraded ones, just to give you a heads up in case they look a little different from what you may have in your vehicle. These are not the OEM Toyota fender liners. Quick update. So what I did is I kind of eyeballed where I wanted it, and I marked the center hole because that's the one that's going to be the most pertinent. And then I drilled it out using a 1/8 bit as a pilot, and then I used a 15/64, I think, which was right about the same size as the bolts. And you can see I've got one bolt. This is just in the hole. There's no backing plate on. The backing plate's right there. But that allows me to kind of get an idea of where I want to drill the other 2 holes. So I'm just kind of eyeballing it in as far as like what's level versus everything on the car. And then I'll go ahead and drill the other 2 holes. And as you can see, I did put some tape on the inside of the bumper there to make sure I don't, chip any paint off or anything. It is a little lower than what they have in the pictures. I mean, also depends on the angle. I mean, you look at it at this angle, it looks like it's halfway. You look at this angle, it looks like it's lower. But that seemed to be like the best location as far as being able to bite into the spoiler, get like a good hole to go through and not have it chip off, as well as centering this divot on the indent in the wheel arch. So that's kind of what I was going for. So I'm gonna go ahead, eyeball it, make sure it looks pretty level, then mark the other holes and get those drilled. All right, I drilled all the holes and I did remove the tape here. And as you can see, I'm starting with the one that goes through the spoiler, and that's just because you have to get the nut in this tiny little groove back here. So what I did is I actually put the nut inside of a box wrench, fed it in like this, and held it up behind where the bolt was coming through, and then hit the bolt with a 10 mil. It's a 10 mil nut and a 10 mil socket that you'll need, and I was able to do it. Just be careful because you have very limited room to work with. I've got it most of the way snug down, so now I'm going to go ahead and start working on the other 2. Those are going to be held in, like I said, by this plate that goes in like this orientation. You should be able to slide it from behind. I may have to loosen a couple of the fasteners for the fender well to do it. I will let you know once all is said and done and I come back. All right, and passenger side is installed. So I'm going to walk you through how I did this without disassembling all of the splash shields and stuff, because it's not easy to do. So as I said before, I got this one in first and had it loose where this would swing pretty freely and had plenty of play in it. Then I went ahead, I removed this fastener there and that fastener there so I could pull this away ever so slightly. What I did then was I slid in the bracket that goes behind here, the mount plate, and I put this nut or this bolt into it without the flap. The flap was hanging down, and I got it to the point where I could use a small drill bit and line up this hole here with the plate in the back, and I snugged that one down. That holds the plate in place behind here. Once that was done, then I went ahead, ran this bolt through the actual spoiler, through the well, and then into the plate behind. Was able to get that tightened down. Once that was tightened down, this is flexible enough I could pull it back and just use a 1/4 inch ratchet with a small 10 mil socket, loosen this bolt back up, pull it out, then run it back through the spoiler into the mount plate behind and get everything tightened up. Once these 2 were tight, then I went ahead and tighten this one up just by fishing the open end of the box wrench behind there and then, tightening down that bolt. So 3 bolts tight, everything is in place. So that is what it's going to look like. Coming around here, here's how it looks from the front. The car is actually not sitting perfectly level just based on the slope of my garage floor, so it may throw it off a little bit in the images. But, sitting down, looking at it from dead on, it looks pretty good. So that is how I went about installing the spoiler on the passenger side. Now it is time to move over to the driver's side. And there's the driver's side. Same thing. I walked through the same process as the passenger side. The only difference was I did have to loosen this screw here just as based on where the thing sits here. I need a little more access to push it back to be able to get the nut where I drilled the hole. But yeah, it looks pretty good. I will say driver's side took all of about 10 minutes to install, whereas passenger side was probably a 45-minute ordeal just trying to figure out the best plan of attack for it. But yeah, you can see how they look side to side. So next thing on the list is going to be getting the front tires put back on and then get it on the ground and see what the final result is on the ground. All right, and here it is back on the ground. I mean, it still will probably drop another inch or so. It's, the suspension hasn't settled, but you can see how it looks in the wheel well with, the wheels back on. not too bad, not too low. Try and get underside view, driver's side, walk around and get to the passenger side. So yeah, there it is. That is the final installation of the MR2 Heaven front wheel deflectors. All right, and that's where I'm gonna wrap this one up. Nice little project done, and gives you some instructions on how to complete this yourself, since there's really no instructions on the MR2 Heaven website for these parts. Pretty happy with how it turned out. The parts themselves fit pretty well. You know, everything, the hardware and everything seemed to be pretty good. So no complaints there with the kit. So, you know, if you want to try this out, here you go. Now you know how. So if you like what you saw, you want to follow along, see, you know, future plans for the MR2, please hit like, please hit subscribe, please hit the notification bell. If you have any questions or comments, leave them in the comment section below. I do review them and I will reply. And that being said, thank you very much for watching and have a great day.